Welcome everybody to the fourth in our empowerment series. I think this one, I'm almost like working my way up to this extremely important talk around mental health. I'm thinking about it because your mental health is really the filter in which you perceive the world and in which you empower yourself. And so by listening to this seminar, I'm hoping that you'll be more resilient. So your usual challenges won't bring you down as far, for instance, and you'll be able to kind of pick yourself up again. So I really think that this is going to be a very important talk for you. Take home points. This is what I want you to understand. We are human and we want to work with our human brains. And I think the best way to do that is to have an authentic perspective, to say, this is how I actually feel, not to suppress that, to actually experience it, to be able to accept it with a sense of self-compassion. And that is the starting point. You start fresh with that every single time. And that's the way that you can more easily transform those difficult emotions and improve your mental health. Secondly, we're really, through this series, building up a whole repertoire of the scientifically proven healing techniques. And I'm excited this time because we're talking about sleep, and I really kind of drill down in terms of how to improve the quality of your sleep, and a little bit around exercise and movement and the beauty of that. And lastly, I always think about purpose. Can you remember what's most important to you? Connect with yourself, connect with others, connect with the universe in some sense. I really want you to consider the bigger picture as we're moving forward. Okay, so this is what we are going to talk about. I'm going to briefly talk about remarkable cancer survivors, which I believe all of us can be in some sense or other. Talking about more about distress and depression. Depression is going to be the bigger topic today. We talked about anxiety, the previous one, and then a little bit around how to change that chemistry within your brain, a little bit around the difficult emotions, and we're going to do a self-compassion exercise to finish off. Remember, what is it that you want to manifest? How do you want your spirit to grow from this? And we can all have like these kind of higher goals. And so we want to maximize our chance of recovery. And if you fulfill any one of these goals, then it has an immediate effect on other goals. We're specifically talking about the kind of emotional, mental level. But when you are feeling better, then you can think more clearly and function better. And that's, it's really allowing your spirit to manifest in this world. Connecting more deeply, which I think is actually what it's all about. This is the most important thing. And you can also view your cancer diagnosis as an opportunity to grow psychologically and spiritually. And in fact, that's when I first came into this idea of the remarkable cancer survivors. Bernie Siegel, the 1980s, Love, Medicine, and Miracles. And that was one of Bernie's key attributes of exceptional cancer patients. They were willing to take cancer as a catalyst, an opportunity to grow, to get stronger. And I'm always putting it within the bigger context here. So when we take care of our mental health, we're better able to advocate for ourselves and be proactive in actually empowering ourselves. So we want to do these things in order to manifest all your goals in the world. Okay, so I'm going to start out with Kelly Turner and her pretty amazing book called Radical Remission. So Kelly is a PhD from Berkeley, California. She had been counseling cancer patients. She had read about people having a spontaneous remission, or what she now calls a radical remission. And she became extremely curious, like, why aren't we kind of studying these amazing people that undergo a recovery from cancer against all odds when the medical system said they could no longer do it? And so she started interviewing, and for this book, I think she interviewed, 150 people, something like that. And she began to figure out what were the factors that led them to, what were the common factors, essentially, and asking that question, like, why do you think you recovered amazingly? And again, I'm not promising that this is going to happen to any one person, but I think we really can learn about these remarkable people and how they work on their mental health and how they empower themselves and use that garnered knowledge, the kind of more scientific knowledge, to make choices as to how we want to live in the day-to-day. And so she came up with 9 factors. In fact, there's a 10th factor I'm going to show you in a second. But it's this idea of taking control of your health. And the fact that you're listening to this, watching this, I know you're there already. That's a meta message to yourself. I believe, and she talks about this idea of being able to follow some sense of intuition, some kind of higher self that can direct you in each of your decisions. And then remarkably, the only physical factors that were in this was the radical change in diet and use in herbs and supplements. Now, first of all, I'd say I think this is more an indication of the proactivity, like kind of taking control of your health. So what can you influence? Well, you can influence your diet, for instance. And so it might just be a manifestation of taking control. And secondly, there was no one herb or supplement that was common to these remarkable survivors. So in my mind, again, it's these people are very proactive, people who are willing to kind of do everything to help themselves. So again, I'm not suggesting that particular factor for anybody. But the takeaway from this is that these people actually did the deeper psychological and spiritual work. So for instance, they did the work of releasing suppressed emotions, doing the psychological work, going through this, journaling, seeing a counselor, et cetera, et cetera. Next is promoting positive emotions. So it's not like forcing yourself to be happy. It's more like creating conditions in which you're more likely to experience those positive emotions. So again, it's a proactive approach. Embracing, engaging social support. We humans are so socially connected and wired to feel like when we're part of the tribe, that in some sense releases an innate healing power is how I think about it. I think about this kind of spiritual connection. It's really having a strong reason to live as well, deeper purpose. So you're so focused there that it kind of enlivens you in every other way. And then kind of after the fact, you put in the 10th factor, which is people actually exercise. So we're going to talk about that and movement today. So the point is that the remarkable survivors take care of themselves at kind of multiple realms, but they especially work on the things around the emotional response to their cancer diagnosis. Okay, so with that in mind, the remarkable cancer survivors would also set their intention, which to me is this idea of remembering what's most important to you. So I think that's the takeaway around that one is coming back home to that higher purpose, higher reason, how you want to be in this world. And I do that as a ritual in the morning. So my wife and I meditate for the first 50 minutes. We actually have a HRV monitor that's on our ear, and we kind of tease each other as to who's got the better score at the end of that 15 minutes. But then I put my hands up and I'm saying almost like a secular prayer. Let me be helpful. Let me be beneficial to people. Let me be loving. Let my love come into this world. So it's like really setting that intention. And then I do like a prostration, like submitting to the fact I don't have control and that I'm willing to be kind of a servant to something that's higher. So that would be a ritual, for instance. And you can do that ritual going into difficult situations like a medical appointment, or when you're amidst the scrum, when you're midst of, a difficult, life circumstance, difficult family circumstance, remembering what is really more important, right? Coming back home and manifesting from that highest self. So it's that same question. How do you want to be in this world? What do you hope for yourself? And on that, because we're going to practice a little meditation visualization right now, I want you to come back home, first of all, to the here and now by grounding yourself in the experience of being in your body, right? So you bring your consciousness into your body, enlivens the body. So bringing your energy to the sense of the feet, connecting with the floor, connecting with the earth. So it's that kind of stabilization, that grounding energy, the weight of the body in the chair. So where your sitting bones hit the chair. Bring your attention to your hands. What do you feel around your hands? You might even be able to feel like an energy field there. We'll do the quick coherence exercise. So start out with slowing your breath down If you can, it's down to about 5 breaths per minute. And the way I like to do that is count in. So a bigger breath, count in for a count of 3 and breathe out for a count of 6. Bringing your mindfulness into this as you're going. Slightly bigger in breath, but then that slow, smooth out breath. Allowing yourself to drop, to center, to come home. Nice, slow, smooth out breath. Now bring your attention, while you're doing this, bring your attention to the center of your chest. And almost imagine like you're breathing in and out of your heart. Nice, slow, smooth out breath from your heart. Very nice. And lastly, generate a feeling within your heart of joy, of caring, of gratitude, of peace, whatever it is, whatever emotion feels right for you in this moment. That positive emotion. Allow yourself to shine that like you're a glowing light, shining that feeling in every direction to every person who's listening now and who's going to listen in the future, sending your loving energy to everyone, everywhere. Very nice. Okay, I've settled down now, so I can kind of proceed with a little less manic energy here. So we're going to actually practice next week. The final session is actually going to be using these techniques, the healing techniques, and actually practicing and giving you some experience around all that. But you're literally changing the brain chemistry. Your heart rate would have settled, your blood pressure would be going down. How you think would change. Simple, it was probably like 2-minute technique would really change how you feel, how you perceive the world. So it's there for you all the time. Okay, so when we're talking about mental health, we're going to focus on the really common stuff. Like you and me suffer this on the day-to-day, kind of depression, anxiety. So sometimes we get low, sometimes we're anxious. And a lot of people who've had a cancer diagnosis have what they call post-traumatic stress. It's like the incredible shock of the diagnosis causes a real jolt to the nervous system, and that can kind of get primed with time. And again, by deliberately practicing the relaxation techniques and doing all these other things, you can actually kind of whittle away at that one. So it really loses its power there. So this is what I want to focus on when I'm talking about mental health. That's classically it, as opposed to, these are issues that we all kind of face as well. Those oftentimes these are biochemistry, like the chemicals in the brain aren't quite right in these circumstances, or the pathways get invaded in a kind of too strong way. And so I'm not going to talk about that kind of side of the mental health picture, even though they're common. Okay, the point is that mental health issues are very common in people who had a cancer diagnosis, right? So we know that about 1 in 3 people who've had a cancer diagnosis will suffer depression, clinical depression, or significant anxiety at some point in their journey. So in some sense, I would say just expect it. You're going to have some difficult days, and that's par for the course. You'll know it's there. And what I'm trying to do is build the resilience so it's less likely to happen. You're less likely to go deeper, and also you'd be able to get yourself out of it more easily. So really, this is a very much about empowerment part of it. Some people are especially at risk. The younger people with a kind of greater expectations or greater loss or greater grieving, are more likely to suffer some mental ill health. People with more advanced cancer, or if they have symptoms, even side effects, often suffer more because of it, and less social support. Lots of other risk factors, but the point is we're all at risk. I think that's the takeaway. And really, it's one human organism that when we stay, especially in depression, it actually worsens the kind of physical outcomes. And part of the mechanism is the inflammation and the damage to the tissue itself. And so it's something that you can do to empower yourself to help your physical health in every other aspect of your life. So we want to take this very seriously. So when I say to you depression, like what do you envision when you say depression? Like, and how would you know if you're depressed, for instance? So a lot of people would say depression is like one big cloud that's staying in bed, not doing anything. It's like this kind of shutdown, going into cocoon. The truth is that depression can be experienced in lots of different ways. And sometimes it's the physical symptoms that come out more so than even the mood. So in depression, by definition, it has to last usually for more than 2 weeks. And it's typically associated with what you can see here, this kind of feeling sad, empty, like demoralized, this hopeless kind of shutting down. Sometimes it's a dissociation from our feelings. And sometimes it takes others to kind of identify it in us. We don't kind of realize it. Someone may say to you, "Are you okay? You seem really down," for instance. So you might not have the recognition of your own emotional state. Depression can come out in the kind of shutting down around avoidance of issues, or it can come out as physical symptoms, right? So that depression leading to an inflammatory response can cause the pains, the headache, the back pain, the irritable bowel. So again, it's watching, being curious, like what's actually going on here? And that kind of, your antenna are up around those issues. The second major thing is that people often lose interest in their hobby. So for instance, if you're like hanging out with your grandkids and you suddenly just don't have the interest in doing that, or you turn down your hobbies, less interest in social connection or sexual loss of interest. Sometimes, if work was important to you and you just don't have the gumption to kind of invest in work, it could be like, oh, okay, what's happening here? And is this a prolonged problem, right? Because we are going to kind of waver in and out of those feelings. Is it the kind of stuck in high mode? Significant weight loss. So, but that can also manifest as an increase in appetite. So it's like both sides, craving the sugary foods, feeling that you have to force yourself to eat. And again, sometimes it's the treatment and the cancer can cause these things. But if you're in neutral space and yet, the weight isn't going quite right, then maybe something's at risk there. Obviously, sleeping too much, like right through the night, waking up, not enough sleep, too much sleep. It's like all the above can get, and we'll talk about these pathways shortly. This is interesting. So if we have too much agitation, too much anxiety, it can actually shut down. So too much adrenaline in the brain leads to the serotonin pathways being suppressed. Serotonin is often the kind of feel-good neurotransmitter, and that can actually trigger depression. So the depression can come out as an anxious hyperagitation. It can come out as a slowing. So physical slowing, but also agitation. So can't sit still, you're wringing your hands, pulling on your clothes. It's like kind of moving all the time. Or mentally, it's almost as if your mind is on that wheel, the hamster wheel, always kind of doing something else. It can become as a feeling. So it's interesting. So depression can also come out as nervousness, inability to relax, kind of this kind of pressured feeling. And then the slowing which is what classically you think about that. And you think about it in terms of your speech, thinking, movements, right? And kind of reduced content. It's hard to think bigger picture when we're feeling depressed. Fatigue, obviously, again, that's one of the most common complaints of people affected by cancer. But it's even like the small things, like even dressing would be like, it's too much to do, or just can't get going, can't get out of bed, just feeling of a heaviness. Again, trying to discern amongst cancer side effects, et cetera, et cetera. But these are the possibilities of depression contributing to all that. And then the psyche, somehow we lose the kind of perspective around what we should feel guilty for, because sometimes we should feel guilty, right? But it's kind of blown up, exaggerated, or a feeling of worthlessness over even minor failures. So, so getting kind of blown up or blaming oneself for one's illness. Sometimes it's like, the ego state gets so frail that you start to put your energy on everybody else and not even kind of consider your own needs and wants. So that would be called the type C maladaptive. Can't concentrate, right? So when we're depressed or upset, we kind of go into the stressed, irritable brain. We lose connection with the frontal lobe. And so that manifests in memory problems or inability to kind of think through more complicated tasks. And then, thoughts of death or suicide. I mean, this is a real life issue when you're starting to say stuff like others would be better off if I were dead. Making a plan you really should get into the emergency department, get some help immediately or off to your doctor. And just that kind of feeling like it's just too much. And I wish I didn't have to kind of go through these difficult situations. So again, it's just these little primes that could say, oh, geez, what is actually going on here? Now, what I learned in medical school is you had to have depressed mood or diminished interest. And then overall, you had to have kind of 5 out of 9 factors that had to last for 2 weeks. Interestingly, men can present what they call subsyndromal depression, meaning that they may only manifest 2 out of those 9, and yet they still suffer the negative consequences of being depressed itself. So sometimes it's trickier in men. They don't kind of follow the kind of classic pattern, but it's important for all of us to be able to distinguish and try to figure out, oh, is this a depression adding to this situation? And what can I do to empower myself? So that's where I want to go. And just to say that, anxiety, the ramp up side of this can also be experienced in lots of different ways, including a lot of this physical stuff, blushing, sweating, trembling, heartbeat, headache, dizziness. It's like, oh, geez, what's going on here? Being curious, like the observer consciousness, watching yourself, watching the physical stuff, the emotional stuff, the thoughts. It's what provides you with the information to tell you how you're actually feeling. And then don't get too caught up in it as well. It's like, okay, this is normal. This is like humans and people, especially people who have a cancer diagnosis, go through stuff like this, right? And so we can be kind to ourselves as we're recognizing and then being smart about how to take the next steps out. Okay, so that's the remainder of the talk. So you need the recognition piece, including the kind of the stress reaction that we talked about last time around, but also we can develop resilience. We can actually get our brain function, the relaxed, calm, clear thinking part of your game can get stronger and stronger and stronger. And then the stressed, depressed or anxious part of your brain gets weaker. It's like you're either feeding one or the other. It's like two wolves in the heart scenario. And I said last time around this idea that we're going to go back and forth between the stressed, irritable, upset selves, and then our best self, which is the wise, compassionate self. So we're flipping back and forth throughout the day. And part of this is, how is it that you can kind of stay online in your frontal lobe and be your best self? Like, how do you get there? And so it's always the same thing. So you set up the conditions, you kind of feed your frontal lobe, make sure your frontal lobe is taken care of as best as possible. And then when you lose it, and we're all going to flip our lid, it's like, come on back home. It's okay. Let's come on back home. Always starting fresh, always starting new, always that opportunity, coming back home again. Okay. Creating conditions of calm. I said to you last time around, we humans, I know if you get too much negative stim in your life, then it's hard to stay centered, right? So we want to avoid the unnecessary stuff. There's enough kind of real life issues that we're having to deal with without kind of overloading that system and depleting our willpower and so on. So try to use the sword of loving kindness to cut away the unnecessary side of it. And obviously, I think too much social media kind of flipping, it's just hard on the brain as well. Okay, so looking for those opportunities to stay healthy, stay at peace, creating conditions for calm. Actually, I think there was, before this one was actually movement. We're going to talk about movement, but diet, and I was kind of showing off my diet tonight, but there are foods that actually allow your brain to feel happier, more functional. And part of it is this idea of keeping your blood sugars within what they call low glycemic range, like not spiking up and not getting too low, because either of those kind of shut down brain function, right? And so if you can't concentrate, if you can't think, it's harder to recognize when you're feeling upset and harder to do things about it. And there are brain foods, for instance, the omega-3s, and I like to get that through like hemp hearts and flax seeds. And there's other healthy fats that can feed your brain. And then there's the berries, like the blueberries and the dark chocolate and there's a lot of other beautiful stuff. I guess I caught your attention, right? Dark chocolate is actually helpful. There's not too much of it. The point is there's lots of very good foods, and that you can experiment and learn and get stronger in terms of what makes you feel good. Like what's the food that satisfies you and gives you that energy and that kind of smooth level of concentration. We're going to focus on sleeping, napping today as well. So there's some real kind of practical advice around that. Super important, very, very important that we practice a relaxation technique of some sort or other, giving yourself that wellspring. What a great word that is, wellspring of relaxation. You can tap into that, right? So you have the capacity to keep on practicing, getting better and better and better at some type of relaxation technique. So you're literally changing your brain when you do all these things, including movement, which is I had up top there. I would say bigger picture, do the things that nourish your soul, right? Remember, like, what is important to you? And it's okay to feed your soul. It's okay to do the things that make you happy, because when you're happy, you're your best self, and you're, everything that you do, including connecting with others and being of service to others, even in the smallest of ways, like listening, is taken care of more readily. So you do those things, you get into nature, you do the activities, you connect. And lastly, I didn't focus here as much, but I would actually think that this is actually one of the most important points, is that we humans like to feel supported. And so it's like wanting to connect with others, finding those opportunities, investing in their relationships. So social media, for instance, has a great place for this particular idea. So touching yourself, like being kind to yourself, or rubbing your face, those type of things. You can trick yourself into kind of releasing oxytocin, which is anti-inflammatory. It makes you feel better, quite literally. So creating conditions for calm by keeping your life in balance on those fronts as well. Okay. First of all, so Kelly Mcgonicles is a Stanford psychologist, researcher. I love her writing. She wrote The Upside of Stress. She wrote The Willpower Instinct. And now this is the book that she's really passionate about. It's The Joy of Movement. And I want to summarize some of the ideas here, and you can kind of tap into the science to actually change your brain chemistry, even within 3 minutes. So, she's tapping into the science. I'm giving you the secondhand version of her teaching. So the point is that if we move, we actually change the chemistry in our body. And one of the things that she said, I was listening to her podcast, is the muscles, as soon as the muscles start to contract, they actually released hormones into the system. And some of those hormones actually kill off cancer cells. And so I'm not suggesting that we just exercise to kill off cancer cells, but there are multiple benefits of exercise. Those hormones are also called the molecules of hope, literally changing your brain activity and how you feel. So some of the things that happen when you start that exercise, and we're talking 3 minutes even, when you get your heart rate up, it releases adrenaline, which is kind of like, you think of that as the stress hormone, but think of it also, it gives you energy, right? And so sometimes when we're feeling depressed, we just need that little extra shot of energy there. The feel-good chemicals improve mood. It improves the motivation to connect with other people, which is, I think, wild, increases hope, increases in our confidence that we can address whatever challenges are coming forward. So the dopamine is the feel-good chemical that gives you that feeling. And just having that kind of, you're having the deep breath of exercising, again, confidence and joy. It's like our bodies are meant to exercise, or to move, I guess I should say. And that by itself releases the chemical. So however it is that you need to do to go there is really, really helpful for your health. Releases the happy hormones, allows you to sleep better, lots of different stuff. Okay, so the first part of her teaching is this feel better effect. So just think you're like having a little bit of a down day, like you're feeling a little bit depressed, a little bit out of it, and just 3 minutes, like go over to your computer, put on a YouTube video of one of your favorite songs and dance to it. 3 minutes. You don't have to do much. You don't have to be a good dancer, just something to get the activity going, something to get those muscles to contract a little bit, whatever is fun for you. 3 minutes later, and there's that kind of sense of happiness, moving the muscles. It's courage for you. 3 minutes. So especially if you're feeling down. And the other thing I think about is, especially if you're feeling anxious and you have this kind of anxious energy, it's as if you're able to channel your nervous energy, anxious energy into something physical to release that sense of tension, right? So it's an immediate change in the biochemistry of your brain and body by kind of letting it out. Okay. What can make you feel better faster? So in order to ramp up this feel better effect, remember, it's just 3 minutes and we can all do like a 3-minute dance in the kitchen, right? It's all possible. Adding music. So just even music by itself releases some of these chemicals within our brain. And you're adding essentially enthusiasm and joy there. So it's pretty obvious. The other one is, so you add music, and if you do some type of class with others, if you're moving with others, the science shows that it creates this, what they call collective joy. So, and again, there are different exercise classes that you can join via Zoom. And you're there, your presence is actually helping other people do it. You don't have to do it well. And it just gives that feeling of bonding and a feeling of empowerment. So it's an easy way to move, to actually make yourself feel better and change your brain chemistry. I would say as well, getting outside is another way to improve the feel better. So I think about it as connecting with the sky. The tiny habit is like, I'm going to go for a 3-minute walk, right? So that's what you're promising yourself. And almost always you go for a longer walk than the 3 minutes. Okay, so there's something else. So that's the kind of short-term, quick shot, kind of boost you in the moment and make you feel better. But you can actually get a high that persists in this situation, if you can, and if your body will let you, and you can potentially even work up to this, is that if you do a more intensive exercise, it changes the chemistry within your brain. And from an evolutionary perspective, think about it as, on the savannah hundreds of thousands of years ago, our brains evolved to make sure that we kept on going. We kept on trying, especially when we were exercising, in the hunt or in the gathering part of this. So it makes sense that we would feel better when we exert that effort. And not only that, it drives a kind of pro-social behavior, i.e., I'm going to share the bounty of my hunt or my gathering. So again, the brain is set up to feel better and get you more socially connected if you can get into that more intense exercise. It really does decrease the anxiety feelings. And I would recommend this actually early in the day, like first thing in the day, especially if you run on the anxious side like me. If you do it early in the day, then you get this kind of longer term anti-anxiety effect. And part of it is the endocannabinoids, which yes, is like THC or marijuana, however, it's the natural version of that. And the endorphins make you feel better. It allows you have less pain, more energy. And so it's a persistent feeling that continues with you and decreases the negative emotion. So it's amazing that you doubt yourself less because you have this chemistry in your body. It's like, I can do better. I can take on these challenges that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And yes, so from an evolutionary perspective, you work hard, you cooperate more with this. Persistence high. So again, you want to do you can do an activity that symbolizes for you something that represents a higher purpose. So for instance, you can feel good about it, but find the meaning. So for instance, when you like lift those weights, you say, look at how much strength, I feel my own strength, right? And so then that can be symbolized into something that, you're dealing with a difficult side effect or whatever, whatever you're dealing with is, I can get through this. I have strength. I'm a strong person, right? Power walking can be symbolized as you're taking your steps on the journey, the cancer journey, for instance. You get this feeling like if you challenge yourself from a physical perspective and you're setting it up so that you'll win, right? So you can succeed at this, then it kind of converts into these kind of mantras or self-belief, core beliefs, like I can persist, I can take on this challenge. Okay, so then if you do that, if you're more physically active throughout the world, throughout the pandemic, and it's not just a selection of like, the happier people are more likely to exercise. These are done in studies to show that the exercise by itself makes people feel happier and more resilient, greater sense of purpose, more connection to community. And we feel more emotions, these positive emotions when we exercise. We feel a sense of gratitude, of hope and love and connection. So you really hijack your brain into feeling better when you allow yourself to move, however that is, even the 3 minutes. And so it's protective. It's like, it's the resilience piece of what I'm talking about. Okay, so if you can, it's not everybody who's going to get there, but you're working towards this 30 minutes a day, 5+ days per week. I like to add the strength training if it's possible for you to do that. So you're kind of using multiple muscle groups, 2 sets of 8 to 10 reps, flexibility, coordination. So I'm prescribing something that's like quite complicated when in fact you can just do something simpler and that will give you a benefit. But if you want to kind of work your way towards this is what the science shows. And the benefits are pretty obvious around that. So better immune function, for instance, less inflammation in the body, so less pain in the body, better mood, better sleep. It's all there. It is the wonder drug in my mind. And there are certain cancers that you're more likely to be alive and well 10+ years later if you continue to move your body, right? So we want to do what we can. It's the panacea here. So how do you do it? Because I want you to do this for years and years and years to come, it's important to be creative about it. You might want to change the activity every once in a while, but make it fun, make it social, build it into your day, right? So this is the remarkable cancer survivor is like, this is primary for everybody I've seen who does well as they really continue to move in some way or form. Okay, so do the work. It's like the meta message is, I want to get better. It's like you're sending that signal to yourself. I'm willing to go through that first 2-3 minutes when it doesn't feel so good and so on. So please, that's a starting point. Oh, did I mention sedentarism? I think I'm trying to mention every single time that if we sit too much, we can actually neutralize the benefits of a good workout first thing in the morning. And we're at risk. We're all at risk, right? Through the social media and TV and Netflix and all the rest of it. So how much do you sit and how can you sit less? And why don't you stand up now while we're looking at this slide? You can even look upwards and maybe just even do like a little mini squat on the spot, like 10 little mini squats in the spot in a way that feels right for you. You don't have to go deep. just allow those muscles to contract, right? So we want to just look for lots of different opportunities to get up every hour. 5 minutes is what I'm suggesting here. Great. In fact, there could be the 3 minutes of the feel better effect. Okay, so there's a number one. Sleep. And the first thing I want to say is I don't want you getting stressed about your sleep right now, right? It's a paradox to say this is an issue, but I'm not going to get myself wound up about this. It's almost like I'm not going to care so much, and therefore I'll sleep better. So the point is, it's something you can do to help yourself. And when you have the discipline to kind of follow through and set up the conditions in which you're more likely to sleep, that is really a loving thing you can do for yourself. But it's the right attitude of very peaceful, very kind with each step of the way. I'm drawing on Matthew Walker's work. He's really a sleep scientist. It's very impressive what we've learned about sleep in the last 20 years. Why do we sleep? The fact is that being awake is toxic. And the more you're awake, the longer you're awake, the more the chemicals that kind of are toxic to the brain build up. And like, why? Why would that even happen? And the point is that we need sleep to flush out the damaging chemicals that are produced from the brain cells, right? So without sleep, you couldn't kind of flush out that stuff. And so it's almost like you're cleaning up your engine every while, which happens especially during the first part of the night, so the non-REM sleep. The second reason why, and it's interesting, is that we consolidate memory. So what we learn during that day gets kind of set down. And so we can access it later, but also you're clearing out your disk so you can actually learn tomorrow type thing. By sleeping, it allows that kind of opening of mental capacity, including creativity. And lastly, I find this fascinating, that REM sleep, so the rapid eye movement sleep, allows us to process emotions. So for instance, let's say your boss yells at you and it was kind of really scary or kind of an upsetting experience. Well, when you go through the REM sleep, when you have the dream, you can do the same, you can have the same experience, but you remove the emotional content from it. So it's almost like you're processing what happened without having to associate that with negative emotions. And that way you can kind of figure out, well, my boss is just a goof sometimes, right? So you can just kind of have that understanding, and it allows you to process the emotional content. So you don't have to feel scared every time your boss is around, for instance. So again, I find it fascinating that it has kind of an emotional therapeutic process around that. The takeaway is that we should be aiming for 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And that's the sleep, not just the time in bed, right? So if it takes you whatever, half an hour to get to sleep, and then you sleep for 8 hours, and you're aiming for 8 hours of sleep, that works. Even though you're in the bed for 8.5 hours, you're only getting 8 hours of sleep. So there's the lymphatic system. What happens is that the brain cells actually shrink, especially during the first part of the night, which allows more of the kind of fluids around the cells to kind of get the flushed system out. So that's the lymphatic system. It's the rest of the body has a lymphatic system, but the brain requires this in order for it to work out that way. And I'm not trying to be a downer here, because if you're not sleeping well, I don't want you to feel badly about this. But the point is that it affects every single system in your body when it's like an ongoing months and months and months of poor sleep. You want to try to take care of yourself as best as possible in order to minimize these effects, including, Alzheimer's and your immune function, risk of cancer, and especially like mental health, right? So this is what we're talking about, is that you'll be happier if you can get some more sleep, better quality of sleep. So that's what we're aiming for, better, not perfect, just better. So you would also think, if it's a very difficult situation, like you have a sleep disorder, then you actually need to see an expert. So you're not going to be able to do the sleep hygiene suggestions here. You actually need to see a specialist, maybe at a sleep apnea machine, et cetera. But right, if you can't function on the day-to-day, you're falling asleep while you're driving, you want to go back to sleep first thing in the morning, like a nap in the morning, it's also a suggestion that you're not getting enough sleep. There's the circadian rhythm. Maybe you'll note that we'll start here with limiting your technology. We talked about the bright lights. We'll get there a bit more. Melatonin helps you start to get sleep, gets the machinery going. It doesn't give you a good night's sleep. It just gets you closer to sleep. The restorative sleep is in the early night. That's the deep sleep. The REM sleep is typically when you're dreaming first thing in the morning. And then you can see the melatonin settles down. And then you can usually do your best kind of thinking, writing first part of the day, then your coordination late afternoon, stay away from the caffeine. We'll talk about that. Start dimming the lights. And it's a cycle. And the idea is to get yourself into this rhythm, ongoing rhythm. Here's the kind of cycle. So if you're going to bed at whatever, 10 o'clock at night, hopefully by 11 o'clock, you've gone down into your first deep non-REM sleep, so stage 4 sleep. And you can see at the start of the night, you're going down deep into stage 4. As the night goes along, you don't get there and you get more and more frequency of the REM sleep. You are going to wake up every 90 minutes or so, even if it's for a short period of time. It's the normal, natural thing. And then hopefully you go back to sleep in between it. And so that's the sleep cycle. Healthy sleep habits. So I think big picture, right? If you can decrease the kind of sense of stress and anxiety in your life, through exercise, meditation, reframing. We're going to talk about those thoughts and so on. And less inflammation, then you'll sleep better, generally speaking. What I'm talking about is what they call sleep hygiene or healthy sleep practices, where you're actually training your brain. You're developing the skill of allowing yourself to fall asleep more easily and to stay asleep. So you're creating the conditions in which that restorative good night's sleep is going to happen. And the number one advice for you for certain is to get into routine. The same activities coming in, the same bedtime, the same getting up, even on the weekends. So it's like you're tapping into your circadian rhythm and having the discipline to go to bed early. Super important. One of the ideas is to actually set your alarm for what they call lights out. So if I want to go to bed at 10 p.m., I have my alarm go off at 9:45 p.m. And then I know at that point, I'm actually going to start my activities, right? I'm going to walk to the doors, make sure all the doors are locked, turn off the lights, change into my clothes, tuck my wife in with her blanket and all that stuff, read a paper book, shut off the lights at 10 o'clock. So it's like, that's happening every night. My brain knows what's going to happen next. It's very helpful. And I feel more tired when that light finally goes out. Sometimes people can use the routine of writing down their worries, right? So part of it is that you may have like, I'm worried about what's going to happen tomorrow, the next day, or whatever, or I have all these big plans for tomorrow. So one way to kind of trick your system is to actually write in a journal what your worries are, your plans are. And then you close the journal and you say to yourself, okay, those are there. I'll open up this book tomorrow morning. They'll still be there tomorrow morning. It's not going to help me to plan or worry tonight. So you kind of set them aside in that sense. Get up at the same time. Okay, not nice to hear on the weekends, et cetera, et cetera. Avoiding the stimulant. So typically you're staying away from the screen time for at least 1 to 2 hours before sleep. And that's why I think reading the paper book is a good option. Staying away from the other stimulating activities for at least a couple hours. So exercising, like if I play hockey at night, I won't fall asleep for like 2 hours afterwards, or eating a very heavy meal. Sometimes you might want to have a light snack. We can talk about fasting at another time. Caffeine. The issue around caffeine is the half-life is about 5 to 8 hours. So best case scenario, you have coffee at 10 a.m. in the morning. 5 hours later, you're down to half the amount. 10 hours later, you're down to a quarter of the amount. So it's almost like that, X number of hours later, you're like taking a quarter cup of coffee at that time. So the takeaway is caffeine is a stimulant that stops the brain from experiencing fatigue. And so what I would say to you is enjoy your coffee before noon to give yourself, less caffeine in your system if you're a coffee drinker or a caffeine drinker. avoid the sedatives. So alcohol does not improve the quality of your sleep. It may allow you to get to sleep more easily, but it doesn't allow you to kind of get deeper down into those restorative cycles. So probably even a drink or two is too much. You want to really bring that earlier in the day if that's what you need to do. Sleeping pills also do not improve the quality of the sleep. Again, they may allow you to get to sleep, but really what you're after is the restorative stuff that really actually changes the chemistry in your brain. So to hack the kind of circadian rhythm, one idea is to make sure you're mimicking the sun. And so you get more and more dim light as the evening goes on. You can use blue light blocking glasses. So I often use that if I'm going to watch a movie with my wife, or if I'm doing emails later at night. I put on these glasses and it stops the computer screen from kind of pushing the blue light into my eyes. It kind of wakes me up and mimics the sun. So again, the last 2 or 3 hours, if you're viewing screen, it's worth the blue blocking glasses. And lastly, I think it's important to stay in dark at night. So for instance, I wear eye shades, and especially we're coming up to spring and summer where the light can come up very, very early and kind of disturb our sleep. And so the dark room eye shades is another way to get at that. And then at the end of the night, and then when you get to the morning, you actually want to get into the circadian rhythm by exposing yourself to natural light. So 30 minutes. So you don't even have to go outside. So just looking out the window into natural light is enough to kind of, it primes the suprachiasmatic nucleus and kind of sets it up so that 12 hours later, your melatonin will start coming on, which will give you that kind of feeling of sleep. So again, you're getting yourself into the rhythm by just getting outside, even for a few minutes for the brighter stuff, but 30 minutes overall, the natural light first thing. I'd say ideal bed conditions. Interestingly, our body core temperature drops by 1 degree or 2 Celsius when we sleep. So we actually need to cool down. And that's why it's good to have a cool room, that kind of 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Obviously, dark, quiet, comfortable, kind of a safe feeling is all important for that. What do you do if you wake up in the middle of the night? So the sleep science says that if you're awake for more than 20 minutes, then you go to another room. And I suggest do some type of peaceful activity, like read a book, et cetera, et cetera. Some people watch like boring shows, et cetera, et cetera. I happen to kind of stay in my room and kind of persist through the boredom of it. But the sleep science says that you want to have the association of your bed with sleep. And then so you return to your bedroom when sleepy. I'd say the other thing you can do is actually practice a relaxation technique, which we'll do next week. So you're allowing your body to relax, which sends the signal to your brain to relax. Or the other one I think is kind of interesting, like maybe you had a really positive elementary school experience and you really enjoyed going to school. So you could think about how you walked to school, or some activity that was really peaceful and positive, and imagine yourself going through that. So again, putting yourself through that with a kind of sense of calm and peace. For those who are really suffering from insomnia, there is, again, scientifically proven techniques. One of them is called cognitive behavior therapy for insomnia, CBTI. And it seems a little bit cruel because like some of the stuff they make you do, the sleep stimulant stuff I've been talking about, the sleep restriction, they're forcing you to go to bed at the same time and get up at the same time, even if you're not sleeping. There's some cognitive reframing. It's a lot of different elements to this. So there are experts, again, there it is, experts of the medical system. And lastly, I think it's important as to how we talk to ourselves. How, like when you're in the midst of it, you say, oh, this is awful. This will never get better. This is a disaster, right? You can kind of beat on yourself for this, or we're going to go through a reframing example. Let's say, yeah, this is tough, but you know what? I can still function when I don't get a whole night's sleep. I'll do my best, catch up some sleep in the next few days. I can do it. It's that kind of positive, kind, yet truthful voice. Melatonin I think it's best that you use it when you're traveling, for instance. So it coordinates the brain activity, doesn't give you a good night's sleep, it just allows you to potentially fall to sleep better. I don't think it should be used chronically. There's some real questions as to the long-term side effects, and there's this lower dose. Don't go for a higher dose than 2 milligrams. There, naps. I think naps are good, especially the shorter nap gets you a little bit of REM sleep. I say before 2 p.m. The problem is if you nap too long or too late, then you lose the kind of sleep pressure or sleep urge later on that evening. Oops. Yeah. So really take away, it's a kind feeling, a peaceful feeling as you move forward, especially on the sleep world. Okay. For your mental health, practice a relaxation technique. It does not have to be this kind of meditation here. You can do some qigong, you can do some yoga, any activity that allows you to practice bringing your attention back to the here and now, getting yourself into a relaxation response. And we're going to do some of those activities next week, so I'm not going to spend some more time on this one. I am going to talk about this idea again of how we think really influences how we feel. So that's the cognitive therapy or the cognitive behavior therapy, or what I call reframing. So we need to work with our difficult thoughts in this side. And I show you this 3-column technique. The situation is just the raw world. Step 1 is, again, being mindful, watching ourselves. Wow, did I just think that? Wow, that's incredible. What's going on? It's like a curiosity without a judgment. Right. And so if you find yourself with a distressing or automatic thought, then you take it through step 2, which is to actually question it with a kind of parental logical mind, especially trying to figure out where it's exaggerated or irrational. And then step 3 is that kind of frontal lobe, wise, compassionate, grandmotherly voice that is also just like smart. And so you're acknowledging, looking bigger perspective and being encouraging of yourself. So we'll take it through another example. So this is, I'll just say it's somebody who's going for a cure. They're in the midst of their chemotherapy. So they've had their surgery, what could be a breast cancer situation, maybe a colon cancer situation. They're going through chemotherapy. They're going for a cure. And what's happening is they're physically getting tired and their brain chemistry is off. So they're feeling irritable, right? There's no judgment there. This is what happens to human beings, right? So on top of that, so I'm not saying that's an easy situation. What I'm saying is now they're going to add something extra to a difficult situation to make it worse. And so if they think to themselves the following question or the following idea, it's no use, I don't have the strength to get through this, you can see that they're actually going to make themselves worse. And especially if they believe their thoughts, or if they think 100% of their thoughts are always true, it's like hard to discern that our thinking can be separate from reality. But if you have the mindfulness to say, oh, I just said that to myself, then you can actually start to work with it, which is in the second column. So what emotions would follow that way of thinking? It's no use, I don't have the strength to get through this. Well, I would say it's like a despair or a depression or like a downing of the emotional energy, right? How does my body feel? It's actually shutting down my life force energy. I'm not having the kind of feel good effect of just the opposite of that, right? So the body's weakening. And in fact, it is making it more difficult to get through their chemo. Is it helpful or harmful? Well, no, it's not helping you to say that to yourself. It may be a difficult situation, but it's not to say I don't have any strength. And that's the fourth point. You start to look at it from a kind of rational perspective. How is it exaggerated? It's no use. Well, that doesn't make sense because you're having chemotherapy, and each cycle of chemotherapy increases your chance of cure. So it's not like there's no use. I don't have the strength to get through this. Well, it is possible you have to stop chemotherapy, but in this situation, the person could get through chemotherapy. And the fact is they are getting through chemotherapy. So therefore they do have the strength. And really what's happening here is that they're trying to live all their chemotherapy in the next 5 minutes, as opposed to just taking a step at a time. So if you can see that, you're starting to reframe already when you can kind of see yourself going through that. So first thing, you acknowledge, oh, this is what it's like to be human. This is tough. I'm feeling down. I'm feeling tired. It's like, okay, that's where I'm at. And then you see a bigger perspective. I've been through difficult things before. I can work with this a step at a time, right? So there's I can do this type of situation. I am getting through my chemotherapy. This doesn't help me to think this. So you're thinking that wisely. And we came up with a slightly different reframe, not to say it's better, who says you always have to be strong. Sometimes to cry and fall apart is the best thing to do. Then it seems I find an inner strength or higher power, right? It's like, just relax. It's okay. I'll take a bath. I'll probably feel better tomorrow. It's like one step at a time, talking to yourself as if you were your own best friend or your wise grandmother. Okay, so cognitive therapy can help with mental ill health, right? So it's oftentimes the beliefs and thoughts that are contributing to those feelings. Last, I'm just going to talk about emotions generally, and to be able to watch and clearly label what's happening without judgment, just clear thinking. So when you say, oh, I'm feeling stressed, that could mean a whole bunch of different things. And so to be able to watch and try to discern, where's the source of this? I'm anxious, right? Maybe I've got a medical appointment coming up. I'm feeling worried about that, right? So that's normal. We talked about that last week. Or I'm frustrated. I can't do what I want to do right now, right? I'm physically too weak to do all the things I love to do. Or I'm sad about my life situation. I mean, I feel disconnected, or I'm grieving the loss of what I was doing before that, right? So it's a sadness or a grief that could be coming out as stressed. Or I'm feeling disconnected, or I'm not thinking clearly, right? So it's those things need a little bit more granularity. So how do we work with those difficult emotions? So going to the source, like what's really happening? What's happening in your life that would make that? Do you need to take action? Sometimes to allow the emotion just to be there is the smartest move. Sometimes you have to be proactive and say, geez, I'm feeling down. I need to get up and dance for 3 minutes, or I need to do this thing, or I need to connect with a friend, right? So and sometimes it's just okay to do the integrated process and allow yourself to grieve and to go through that. To honor the emotions, not to try to suppress and not to try to act out. Suppression would be to say it is not happening. Acting out would be to take it out on other people, for instance. So you want to grieve wherever appropriate, or express your frustration, like talking to a friend, for instance. And then as well as wherever possible, look for the distortion. Like, are you creating a bigger loss than was what is actually there? And can you reframe that? Can you work with your frustrations? Can you see the wiser approach? And is it worth letting go? Sometimes the letting go is the smart move, right? So you just let go. This is not helping me. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I'm just going to let that emotion be. I'm just going to feel the emotion and not try to wrestle with it. Healthy grief. So grief is sometimes confused with depression. Any loss is going to cause the grief. And so there are multiple types of griefs that we go through. Grieving has a natural course if you allow yourself to feel it. It doesn't bring you down and keep you down like a depression. Grief is more like episodic in its nature. If it's prolonged and really bringing you down, get the help is the takeaway. We're going to feel angry. It's a natural human reaction, and it protects us, protects yourself, protect others. I think it's better, when you're feeling the anger, is to be conscious of it, because sometimes it can just get blown up unnecessarily. And so to stand up, set the boundary is appropriate, but not to blow completely. And you can also just look for opportunities where you can exercise that off. Notice the thoughts, drop the thoughts, learn to express that anger, the frustration, kindness with integrity. And then last thing is we're not going to feel badly about having emotions. So that's the second error of poisoning ourselves, when we judge ourselves for being there. And so this kind of sense of self-compassion, letting go of the extra unnecessary suffering is really the kind of takeaway here. And your relationship to your own emotional life, right? So for instance, If you're stressed, it's like, oh, this is bad. I shouldn't be there. This is awful. I'm not doing this right. I'm inadequate. It's a very judgmental perspective. Whereas the wise perspective is to say, okay, this is what's happening. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling anxious. Something important's at stake. I can learn from this. You can always say, this is a good opportunity, right? You can always learn, always get stronger with time. I'm going to finish off with just a little bit of teaching around self-compassion, because I think it's super important as a stepping stone for mental health and reframing and learning. And Christian Neff is the kind of world guru around this, lots of science around this. So you can imagine a time when a friend came to you who was really struggling. And so they felt like they did a big failure, made a mistake, or they really regretted, and they were really feeling terrible about themselves, maybe a relationship issue and so on. So imagine that person is just confiding in you. How would you talk to them? What would you actually say? What would be the content of what you'd say? How would you say it? What would be your tone of voice? What kind of words or language? How would your body language relate to them? Right? Okay, so just you put yourself in that space of confiding and chatting with and connecting with your friend, right? So that's one experience. Imagine a time when you were struggling, right? So you felt like you'd done a big mistake, or made an error in judgment and were feeling badly about it, or you did something you regretted. Maybe there's a relationship issue. Remember how you talk to yourself. What did you say? What was the tone of voice internally? What type of language did you use? How did you relate to yourself? And so the question is there a difference in how you treat your friend and how you treat yourself? And I think almost everybody, it's kind of universal, says, I really am very harsh on myself compared with the compassion, easy compassion I feel for my friend, right? What's the difference? So why aren't we more compassionate with ourselves? And so when you hear that word self-compassion, some people have some blocks to that because it sounds like we're somehow pitying ourselves, or it sounds very kind of self-centered, egocentric, or it sounds very weak. And I could give you arguments against each of those, but the truth is the science shows that if you're self-compassionate, you're actually more likely to do the right thing, be happier, all these kind of positive benefits than what comes about from the slide. So people who are self-compassionate or even been taught self-compassion have decreased anxiety and all these other maladaptive behaviors and so on. They generally are much happier. They have greater satisfaction, gratitude, optimism. So it's quite associated with the kind of positive emotions. They're more likely to take care of themselves, more likely to get better medical care, great in coping, strategy, resilience. They really are, and their partners will rate them as higher in being more giving, understanding, better communication. So really, it's a clear link between self-compassion and lots of ways of being. And the point is, you can actually learn to be more self-compassionate, and that decreases the chance of depression, anxiety, stress, the whole gamut of things, right? So, and I'm not going to take you through all of the technique, but I just want to do one exercise, thinking about self-compassion as noticing, like being mindful, feeling moved, like from a kind of heart space. And there's this idea of kind of what they call common humanity, that this is how we humans go through, difficult situations. So when you have those components or elements, like if you see somebody who's suffering on the street, you notice them, you feel a sense of connection or pain or kind of that heartfelt space with them. And here, but the grace of God go I, a kind of sense of, this is what happens. This could happen to all of us. So I just want to do a quick little self-compassion ritual. I wish you want to stand up and put your hands on your heart. So that is one self-compassion ritual. It's like real caring, calm. But also there's the kind of karate stance which is a strong stance. So the hands at the side in hands and fists. It's like, it's a discipline as well. Like you can sit again, the mother who is trying to get the young child to act appropriately doesn't say, no problem, honey, you can eat ice cream all day long. You don't have to go to school. The compassionate mother says, sorry, honey, you do have to eat your vegetables and you do have to go to school. So there's a sense of strength with self-compassion. So to finish the presentation, we'll do a visualization of how you can be self-compassionate. So I want you to think of a situation in which you're really feeling like it was a difficult moment, something that was causing you stress. So call to mind that situation. And I want you to actually experience a little bit of that to whatever degree feels right for you. So the kind of stress, emotional discomfort in your body. So you're suffering. It was a difficult situation. Now, if you can see that, then you say to yourself in step one, this is a moment of suffering. And if suffering sounds like too much, then you can just say that was tough, or that hurts, or ouch, or that was stressful, or this hurts. So it's like recognizing it. Oh, that hurts. That's tough. Oh, that's stressful. So you acknowledge, first of all, just be with the truth. Step two is the common humanity. Suffering is a part of life, or you could also say, other people feel this way. Or I say something like, people who had a cancer diagnosis go through this, or this is very common, or we all struggle in our lives. This is normal. I'm not alone in doing this. So that's the step two of the self-compassion break. And then step three, and I like that ritual or symbol, putting your hands to your heart, and then literally feeling the warmth of your hands and kind of sending that loving energy into your heart. Whatever feels best for you as to how you want to do that. And then you say to yourself something like, may I be kind to myself? And if that doesn't resonate, there's lots of other things that you could say to yourself, whatever you think you need to say in that moment to express a kindness to yourself. May I give myself the compassion that I need. May I accept myself as I am. May I forgive myself. May I be strong. May I be patient, right? So there's really that very kind voice. You see how my voice changes in the kind of kind, loving voice? It's that's how you talk to yourself, or you think that to yourself. So those are the 3 steps of a self-compassion break. On that lovely theme, we're just plug for our book that you can be ordered through healingandcancer.org. It's the teachings of a weekend retreat. All the teachings, including self-compassion and true stories of amazing people who've been through the retreat experience. We'll finish there. Thanks everyone for your amazing attention and great spirit. I'm really happy to take some questions now.